it's important to understand that we are more of a gift to other people and to our jobs if we take care of ourselves. So that has to be a priority so that we can provide better care, better work, right? Produce better projects for others, for our passions, for everything.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome back to the show, friend. I have my new best friend, Alisa, with me, and we are going to talk about self-improvement. And I know that sometimes sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm already doing so much. And I go and go and go and go, and I don't have time to work on myself. I don't have time to learn. But sometimes self-improvement is letting go of something that doesn't serve you anymore. And how do we know those things? And how do we get to the heart of who we really are? Do you really know yourself? And Alicia's going to help us learn to know ourselves so that we can improve. The information about Alisa is in the show notes. So we're going to jump right into this conversation. And Alisa, help me to get to know myself better so I can improve.
Oh, yes. So thank you for having me. And self-improvement is something that I'm very passionate about as well. I feel like if we don't spend time with ourselves, if we don't spend time to get to know who we are, it's very hard to silence the noises that we have around us. And there's a lot of noises right now. What society thinks we should do, what our family thinks we should do, what everybody around us thinks that is the best for us. But I feel like we're the only people who will be ever able to predict that and say, okay, you know what, this is something that truly matters for me personally. It doesn't matter if anybody else has a sense into it. And so I want to follow that, and I want to come to find my dream. I want to bring that fulfillment to the surface level of my life rather than, keeping it so buried inside. And the only way to do that is to truly know what we're capable of, what do we want, who are we, what we're striving for, what moves us. All of those things matter. And I feel like looking at many different domains of our life: physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, social, cultural. There's so many different domains that we have in our life. And so I feel like looking deeply into that and seeing if we align with every one of them and we're happy where we are. And if not, maybe there's time to start moving forward and maybe set some new kind of assignments for ourselves, some new goals, some new aspirations.
How do I know if I'm aligned? How do I know, socially? Is it how I feel? Is it like, oh, John Doe over there is acting like this and he looks really cool, so I need to? How do I know if I'm aligned with where I want to go?
That's a great question. And I feel like when you said, should we start with our feelings? I feel like that's a good place to start because naturally, just like our bodies are meant to be healing themselves, right? If we get a scratch, it's healing beautifully without us doing anything. So I feel like turning inwards and saying, okay, am I at peace? Am I feel like do I have enough energy for everything? I wake up in the morning. What do I feel? What do I experience? Am I dreading the day ahead or the opposite? I feel excited and motivated. So I feel like these are some good points to kind of start checking in with ourselves and seeing, okay, where am I today? What's going on? But again, oftentimes we get so much noise that we don't have time to do that. So I feel like, again, if you're driving to work, you have 2 or 3 jobs, you have family you have to feed, you have so many responsibilities you're carrying with you on your shoulder, so to say. It's very hard to stop and say, okay, what am I feeling? Because sometimes when we have to do something, we tend to push ourselves really, really hard without acknowledging whether we hit our limits or not. And then it's not surprising that a lot of people right now tend to have a burnout. They're exhausted, they're not happy. And even though sometimes our jobs can be the most fulfilling things, am I taking too much on myself? Is it too much to handle for me? And I feel like setting boundaries, even with those things that sometimes are very important to us, can be important as well. For instance, if we're talking about family, right? And if, let's say, I have so much responsibilities on my plate, including job, kids, partner, other family members, and saying, okay, am I able to give everybody what they deserve? Is my job getting the best of me, or is my family getting the best of me? And so I feel like setting boundaries for certain things that may not be the most important can be a way to go, like you've said, right? Letting go, sometimes it's needed. And sometimes the letting go part is not pertaining to something small. Sometimes it's bigger things that we have in life that can be important. So maybe temporarily setting boundaries with some in some areas of life can be a necessary step.
I remember lots of days where I'd wake up and just go, I just need 5 more minutes of rest. It isn't that I didn't like my job. It isn't that I didn't like my family or my friends. I just felt like I was drained and just needed a little bit more time. But you kind of like buck up and get out of bed and you do all those things that at the moment you feel like you have to, but you really want to because of all the things, these are the rewards I get for doing this. And so, how can we honor ourselves when we do just need a rest? Sometimes everything's great other than I don't have enough time for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, to start, I feel like we all have to have certain kind of practices for ourselves where we are able to tune into ourselves and see, okay, how am I doing? What am I feeling? What do I need? What are my needs in general? Because I know a lot of people who function beautifully because they have to, right? They have to. But at the same time, they don't get enough sleep. And it's something that if you have people around that you give so much to, and if they truly love you, they should also take care of you just like you do for them. And so that's another thing. We have to scan for our surroundings and make sure that it's supportive of us. And sometimes it's easy to, again, neglect our own needs. So if you have someone who's also looking out for you, just like we look out for other people, because it has to be a reciprocity there. And so creating your own space for yourself and asking for the time if you need the time, let's say from your family, maybe even taking a small vacation, maybe a getaway, whatever we have to do. I know sometimes it's not enough time, but at the same time, we're not available to other people or to our jobs if we don't prioritize ourselves. It starts with us ultimately, I feel like. And it's important to, just like we give to other people and we prioritize them, if we don't get that care for ourselves, we will be no good to other people because we sense into energy, right? If I feel someone is exhausted, it's hard to even ask for something back. If I know that those people that I love feel exhausted, I'm not going to ask, right? But that person can be giving, or I can be giving to my family, right? When I don't have any. So it's important to understand that we are more of a gift to other people and to our jobs if we take care of ourselves. So that has to be a priority so that we can provide better care, better work, right? Produce better projects for others, for our passions, for everything. So setting that time for yourself is essential. And something may have to give, like something we have to sacrifice sometimes. I don't like the word sacrifice, more of like compromise, but I feel like sometimes it's a sacrifice for some people who are really entangled with a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah, that one's a hard one because we are giving of ourselves and we are pushing to get everything done. So sometimes it feels like a sacrifice, like I am giving up personal time for this. And how do we start prioritizing ourselves so that we're not feeling like we're giving up our own time for everybody else? It's like for this moment, I can push a little harder, drain my battery a little bit more to get this done, but I need to recharge. And if we don't focus on making sure we recharge, we will burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it's a problem for a lot of us right now, I feel like, in the world, right? Setting boundaries is very important, even with those people we love so much, even with those jobs we feel so fulfilled from. We have to realize that we have to balance out. It's about balance. And I'm not saying sometimes balance is not going to be always equal. We cannot take time for self care as much as we do for work, obviously. But at the same time, finding activities and finding time and your personal space and setting those boundaries with other people and saying, you know what, I need to have that. And then seeing again those people who truly are on our side, they will always understand that. There will never be a question. And I feel like that's a really good checkpoint for a lot of our relationships to see if they're, can be reciprocated or not. And scheduling your own kind of time for yourself, your own practice, where it doesn't have to be too much. Starting small, I feel like it's always the right step, especially when I get caught up with a lot of things that I have to do daily, right? But setting up, starting with 5, 10 minutes a day, nobody can say I don't have 10 minutes. I can always find 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes we can find. 30 minutes can be a little more tricky. An hour can be even more tricky, especially when we have kids, partners, jobs, and all of that. But I feel like starting small, even 10 minutes, if you really disconnect from everything, will allow us to at least scan where am I today? What am I feeling? What am I experiencing? So I feel like just setting those small goals first, and then it comes to our jobs, maybe kind of schedule in your head. Again, if right now I have to drain my batteries a little more, like you've said, right? What can I do in a month? Can I allow myself to take 2 or 3 days away from my home? Because again, I feel like taking your time away from your normal environment can be very therapeutic and great for anybody. Because when we disconnect with the reality of triggers that we have every single day, I'm seeing the laundry basket, or I'm seeing my kids' clothes, or I'm seeing something on the table, some crumbs from the breakfast, it immediately reminds me of the things I have to do. But if I'm taking myself out and I'm driving somewhere, maybe it's another city, maybe it's not too far, right? If you cannot leave somewhere where you can really enjoy a couple of weeks, right? Taking a short getaway, going somewhere in another city per se, or even taking a hotel in your own neighborhood, but disconnecting from the place that reminds you of all of the responsibilities and just taking that time for yourself, scheduling it ahead if you have a very busy time.
I remember many times when I'd park in the garage, shut the door, and just give myself 5 minutes before walking in the door. It's just,
Mhm.
it's outside of the kids, the husband, the house, the work. It's even though you're in a familiar place, you're isolated, and you can do that 5-minute guided meditation if you want, and just let work go and let family come, and give yourself that peace. And so I do completely agree with taking the moments, whether you can find 10 or 20 or
Mhm.
a weekend. But sometimes, what do we sacrifice for those 10 minutes? And when I really delved down in, when I took that time to sharpen my saw, I was more productive. I wasn't actually giving up any time. I was giving myself that charge to go more. And
Mhm.
it's a hard one to find because we feel like if we just stop, it's not going to get done. But that's the one thing in Stephen Covey's seven principles of highly effective people that I've
Mhm.
always remembered is that sharpen your saw. It's that race between the two people, and the one guy's laughing at the other guy for stopping all the time and resting. And he wasn't resting, he was sharpening his saw. And when he got back up, his saw was more productive than the other guy's. And so he ended up winning the race because having a sharp saw was important. So, how do we find that thing? We all have a different thing that's going to sharpen. Somebody might want to go out dancing and just let free. Another guy might want to go for a hike or to a beach or to a lake. How do we find that thing that rejuvenates us or our personal self?
Yeah, well, it comes down, I feel like, to the same knowing yourself, right? Turning inwards, let's say if I would ask you, where do you feel like you feel the most inspired or the most peaceful or the more like yourself? What is that place? Maybe it was a service, maybe it was an act, right? Maybe you were painting, maybe you were writing, maybe you're singing, maybe you're surrounded with those people on the dance floor, like you've said. I feel like this is an important thing to see. Okay, where do I feel the most aligned, the most alive, the most excited? And everybody will have a different answer for that. But if I don't have those strategies, if I don't even know what they are, because I know a lot of people don't, then maybe it's time to start searching, to start just taking one day and say, you know what, every weekend, if I have an hour or two, I'm going to go, not maybe not every weekend, but every other weekend, let's say, I'm going to go and explore new things that I feel like maybe, oh, you know what, this is interesting. I've never tried that. Or maybe I should go and sign up for that. Ooh, I feel like this would be a really good fit for me. Just exploring. It may or may not be a good fit, but I feel like knowing what we like comes from experimenting and experiencing. So even if we don't have the answer for that, maybe we can start researching what kind of ways, where do I feel the most inspired or motivated or excited. And I think that can give us better idea, what can I incorporate into my daily life or maybe my weekly life, right? But what gives me that kind of pleasure and that kind of enjoyment.
I think that finding that thing is so important because we are different. And you might look at somebody else and go, oh, she looks really refreshed. She went on a hike. And you try it and you're not refreshed. You're stressed. It was hot. It was miserable. It was dusty. And so we all have that different thing that responds to us. Let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor. And when we come back, let's talk about how we tune in and find that thing that rejuvenates us. So we'll be right back. Hey, since I rarely have openings in my coaching schedule, I have a new resource out there on my website. It is called the BFF Coaching Network. And I have offered a spot there for any coach that has been on the show to list the coaching. You can go out there, you can listen to their episodes, you can feel a little bit about them, and then choose a coach that will work for you. So LaraJaneLayton.com, the BFF Coaching Network. So Alisa, when I tune into me and I start reflecting, maybe today I can go, what did I do today that made me feel good? What did I do today that made me feel drained? And just kind of look and feel it and tune in. You can start identifying that. And guess what? I liked what you said about try it. And then if it doesn't work, try another one. But what is your secret for really honing in on that? Maybe, you tell us. I can come up with lots of guesses.
Well, I personally tried a lot of different things for myself, and that's how I was able to identify those areas or at least like themes that I really enjoy and that make me feel good. And again, you're absolutely right about recharging. I feel like sometimes we have people who recharge from others, and sometimes we have people who need their own space. Sometimes it's a combination. Again, we all have different days. But I feel like trying it out and seeing, just taking one project at a time, especially if you have any downtime that, let's say you have your kids are away, right? When during the summer, sometimes if you have a little more personal space, if your job does not require too much of your attention, maybe it's not the season, right? We'll have different types of employments that we have. But taking a new thing, let's say, okay, let me try art, right? Let me go and try something artistic. And there are a lot of workshops, a lot of classes. And I love how you said about also acknowledging throughout a day what did give me energy, what drained me. I feel like those are important things. But again, for that, we need to delegate time to really sit and allow ourselves to acknowledge what did give me energy and what took away from me. And if I do that, I can identify at least areas that I can dive into and see maybe I can explore that area. Again, if it's art, maybe I'll try painting first. But that didn't sound good to me. Maybe I try embroidery. Maybe I'm gonna go and do a pottery class, right? When I make something out of it. And I feel like that can give us a little more insight on maybe art is our thing. You know what? I like it, but that's not quite it. Maybe I will try exploring exercise and say, you know what? When I exercise, I come home and I have extra energy. The same thing, right? And I feel like exploring very different areas. It may not be even in the same kind of theme. If I try art and exercise, maybe the next one I try martial arts. Maybe I'll go for becoming a part of the book club. Maybe I love reading, right? And those people share that kind of the same similar likes, like-minded people. So I feel like exploration of that. And again, maybe even going to try things that may not be our first choice altogether. And we can surprise ourselves sometimes. Maybe we never thought we may like something like art, right? And we do out of the sun. So I feel like just exploring that and checking in with yourself. How am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Listening to ourselves, because our bodies too, I feel like we're oftentimes very disconnected from our bodies because of the mental space we go to. All of the problems, we're not really solving them physically. We're trying to solve them mentally, but that can often cause anxiety more than not. So checking in with your body, really diving in and saying, okay, how did I feel today? You know what? I actually feel really good. My body feels good after I've done whatever I've done today. So I feel like checking in with yourself and trying new things can be a way to go, at least to start.
You're checking in with your body reminded me, a lot of times I'll do like a quick body scan with a guided meditation as I fall asleep because you can see where you're tense. You can feel those areas of your body that um, took on the day. It's not your whole body all the time. And sometimes it's just your brain and you have a migraine. Another time it might be a backache where you're just, or shoulders or something. And that
Mhm.
body scan, and there's plenty of them out there that you don't even have to buy. Just that quick 5-minute body scan as you're falling asleep is very relaxing, but it doesn't tell you how it got there. It's telling you where it was affected. And so, really, that process that you talked about is, self reflection. How do I think about those things that happened? And how do I link the things that started to add that stress? Say I come home with really tired shoulders and they just hurt, and you go through some stretching exercises to let go of it. But sometimes that tune into how it happened is just as effective as a stretching routine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that kind of a picture that you painted, right? When you come home and you feel a lot of stress and you start stretching. And another component of that can be that even if I'm stretching right now at night and before bed, right? I may not necessarily be stretching physically as well, even though I'm physically trying to do kind of movements, right? If mentally I'm not there, because usually we don't think about what we're doing currently. Our mind is always racing to the next stop and solving the next problem, or what I'm going to feed my family tomorrow, what I'm going to do for myself tomorrow, what I have to do at work, what I have to send that email. It's so much, especially for women. And I'm not trying to diminish men, but women have a lot more thoughts about things they have to do. So I feel like learning, and that comes again, this how and why it got there starts with us being able to control our mind and where do we put it. Because if my mind is all over the place, I will never be aware of what's going on in my body. We have to remember we're one system. We have our emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, all in one place, even though they seem to be so separated all the time. We're going to the doctor, we're getting prescription for some symptom, right? We're going to mental health, we get that. We're going to church, let's say, whatever the kind of congregation, and we get the spiritual needs met. But we can do it all in one place where we are. And I feel like if I need to find out where my body got that tension, it really helps to bring your mind down, because oftentimes the mind is somewhere up there in the cloud, very far away from us in our headspace, right? But if I bring that down, we have the intuition and the instinct to know what's wrong with us and when we need a stop, when we need some help, when we need some guidance. So I feel like if I'm doing those stretching at night from my sore shoulders and I'm putting my full awareness, my full attention inside, and let's say going through the day and saying, okay, what could have brought that? What was happening today? If we get to a point to the event or to experience or to a person that probably prompted this kind of tight shoulders, we will know. We have to trust ourselves. We know, if, and that's the problem because we're so disconnected most often than not, and we forget that we carry all the answers that we need. And I feel like turning inward, that's exactly the practice that will allow us to know every answer I need to where to move in the future. And let's say if I'm coming to a solution in my head, let's say something that I want to try, we will feel internally that's the right thing for us if we listen to what our body, our mind, our emotions telling us. There's this response that will be natural. But we, again, oftentimes we're so preoccupied with something else that we don't pay attention to what's going on internally. So I feel like even bringing or becoming more aware throughout the day as well, practicing that. It doesn't take away from our responsibility. I know it can feel like that or we can think like that, but it really doesn't. The moment I take just a little breath throughout the day, even if I'm at work, right? I don't have to wait to the end. But even taking a little breath and saying, okay, 1 second, let me come down. There are a few exercises that people can do to really tune in into their bodies and bringing their attention down into their sit bone, into their feet, grounding them to the floor, allows us to connect to our bodies and allows us to know, okay, is there something growing right now that I don't feel good? Because usually we can say, right? Even if I'm at work and I'm like, something feels weird, but it's okay. No, take the time. Okay, why it feels weird right now? What's going on? We will know, if we pay attention, we really want to work on that. If I really have that intention, and that has to be very intentional process. If I get up in the morning and say, okay, you know what? Today I will spend my intention. I will set an intention to really tune into myself and to say, okay, how aware am I? Where am I at? What's going on? We can't miss the signs if we really don't want to miss the signs. If we have that intention of, what, I'm going to be looking out for myself now, and I set that as a goal for the day, we're going to remember to tune in and to try to observe what's going on internally.
As you were talking, I was thinking about it may not be someone that you encountered. It could be someone you're avoiding. Um, I don't want to run into Henry today. He really pissed me off yesterday. What do I need to do? And so you go all out of your way not to walk past his desk and not to go places where, you really see Henry. And just that focusing on that negative that happened, you're holding it. Even though you think you're avoiding it, you're holding on to the problem and avoiding the trigger so it doesn't go off. So I'm thinking about, how do we relax through the problem and let it go instead of avoiding the trigger?
That's a great question. I feel like, well, my view on it is a little maybe different from a lot of people, but to me, everything that creates anything that I can consider a trigger in my life, right? Any person that I can consider that kind of trigger, to me, that's my greatest teacher. If I'm able to navigate this relationship and this trigger without actually being emotional or reacting, or like even having those thoughts, why am I preoccupied with this problem? That can be the greatest lesson for us to learn and the greatest way to actually get some self growth and self development through it. Because ultimately, that's where we want to get to. It's feeling unshakable, right? Nobody can do anything. Nobody can cause me to feel anything I don't want to feel. That's the ultimate. We are responsible for that. Even though we may not be able to change directly our emotions, we're able to change the thoughts that are linked to our emotions. So choosing how I process situation, what I think about Henry even, right? Am I making him that of a big trigger for me that I can't control him and I should escape? Then I'm not really mastering myself. And I feel like learning to find the lesson in that and learning to how can I get better through that. It's here for a reason. The Henry works in this office for whatever reason. I don't know what the reason is, but I want to find out how I can master that and not, get that emotion or not get that reactive towards him or not even driving myself to a turmoil. Why do I have to think about Henry when I have a job to do, and then I'm coming back home? It can be all of those things are worth considering and looking into. So I feel like.
I love your answer. It really is. What is this? What can I learn from this? Taking it in and like, if I run into Henry, you're the second you have that thought, you're holding on to something that happened in the past. And it's how I'm going to interact with Henry today in a way
Mhm.
where I feel peace. Or maybe it's having an honest conversation. Sometimes it's just getting that information where you're comfortable. Like, oh, I want to rip his head off. I want to rip his head. Find a kind way to sit down and say, Henry, sometimes my brain wants to rip your head off and I just want to get along with you. So let's talk about our relationship. Sometimes just a conversation, as awful as it can feel going into it, will let go of that past trauma just because you confronted it and you dealt with it. So I loved your answer. It's scary as heck sometimes, but it's like when is that balance of avoiding the trigger and just facing it full on? And I honestly know it is easier to deal with it if it's your choice to walk into that situation than if it happens. And so instead of avoiding that, I'm choosing to interact with Henry in a more professional or loving. If you want to go with that spiritual love, I love this person unconditionally for the things I think are a fault, but he's probably perfectly him. What is it that they say? If you want to learn forgiveness, somebody's got to wrong you and you've got to forgive him. So what is it? Why is he in my life? And move forward. So I love, 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 love your answer.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like sometimes we also don't consider that we may not even know the true Henry, right? What I see at work, I mean, we have so many different faces, so many different roles in life. One person plays a mother, a coworker, a daughter, a wife, we have a lot of different faces we have to wear, different roles. And sometimes what we show at our jobs, it's not necessarily who we really are. It's something that we have to kind of put on to perform in a certain way. And there's this book by Jay Shetty that's called Think Like a Monk. And he talks about how we have to really look into how people are for the most part, they're good. And those traits that we can perceive as something is wrong with them, or they're this or they're that, the judgments we kind of project. If we say the next thing, if we give that person 10 positive qualities, we can see that, yes, essentially we're more good than bad. And so sometimes it's the lack of communication, like you said, having that conversation with him and just maybe not even kind of discussing what kind of trigger that caused me, why I felt a certain way, but just getting to know the person and saying, okay, who that person is. Let me actually not make that such rapid kind of judgment. Let me sit with him and talk and see who he is, or maybe going for team building activities, right? So sometimes to start there and see, okay, maybe I need some boundaries with that person, or maybe I misjudged them. Maybe that was my bias that created this picture for me. And now I'm in the turmoil because of how I view the person. Because we're all essentially, we're even the worst people can be so good for others. So we all have, and we have to be the enemies sometimes, even though we may not do anything wrong. I feel like we all have to experience being in those roles, even if we don't do anything to kind of, be in that role at the moment.
And sometimes even after that, approaching and communicating and getting that off your chest, that's not solved. And you still are going to have a problem, but that doesn't mean that he's still not there for a reason. It's like, okay, I'm wanting to hold on to this a little bit longer. It didn't resolve. There's more opportunities. There's a lifetime ahead. So
Yeah.
just giving it another chance later. But I think that it does help that you at least understand each other a little bit better and moving forward. And I don't think I've read this book, Think Like a Monk. Is it big, long, short, easy? Is it on audiobooks? What do we have?
So I actually have an actual book and I have the audio book of that. It's Jay Shetty. It's the young and very wise man that's currently, again, he is a speaker and he is a writer as well, an author. And it was beautiful resource for a lot of people who want to find inner peace. And he explains, again, there is nothing considering religion, even though, again, he was a monk. He calls himself former monk. But there are a lot of really good suggestions for how to navigate our mental space and how to create different discipline, how to identify your own values. Very useful information for people if they want to kind of go through it. Yeah.
I'll have to grab me a copy and go through it. So as we're talking about that self-improvement and the better we know ourselves, we're able to do improvements. But sometimes people say you're perfect just like you are. So why do I need to change anyway?
Oh, that's everybody's choice. I mean, people can say all the things, and I'm going to tell you that some people are not going to be happy about you improving, and that's okay. Because sometimes people are easier to manipulate if you're where you are, there can be a lot of different reasons. And I feel like if it's only our judgment, am I good or not? But we also have to consider that the only constant in our life is change. So things will change around us. How can I remain the same? There's no way. Plus, again, as we grow and we develop further, right? Looking back, and I've had some people say, well, I'm the same I was 10 years ago. And my head is like, why are you proud of that? Like we should be changing. I mean, I can look back on my life and say, oh my God, no, I'm exactly the same as I was 10 years ago. For me, that will be I haven't grown. There is nothing that I've done differently, and I'm just in the same kind of mindset. I think the idea is to change. And I feel like we change even if we acknowledge that or not. It's just sometimes it's whether it's for better or for worse. We can say sometimes at the time being, but it's good to kind of check in and see, okay, how was I 10 years ago? What am I doing now? And why people are saying I'm okay. And if I don't feel okay, right? The question is, how am I feeling where I am? Am I feeling satisfied? And I'm feeling, again, if I'm good about myself, is there something that I feel like I should be doing? Because I feel like stagnation can lead us to that turmoil as well and burnout. And maybe it's associated with how people, or what do we see as happiness? Because for me, happiness is progress. If I'm not progressing, I will never be fulfilled and I will never be happy. I will never be at peace. Because as the time goes on and the world is changing, You have to change with it. That's natural. Yeah.
Yeah, the world is not the same as it was yesterday or the day before. And if you look back a year, it's not at all even close. Yeah, there's some constants, but overall, we're all evolving in multiple different directions. And as long as we stay true to our new self, every moment you learn a new lesson. I mean, sitting here talking with you, I'm learning. I'm not the same as I was before we started talking because I have new insights, new growth, new things. And so I think it's fun to embrace the new you. And it's like, woo, I'm new. I just figured this out.
Yeah.
Celebrate.
I love that for sure. And we have to always remember we are both a teacher and a student at the same time in every relationship. And that's why when, again, we tend to put ourselves higher or separate from others, we forget that we can also learn a lot from people. That's what was one of my really like motto, right? Like we have to, I'm anybody I talk to, even if I don't feel good about the person per se. Yeah, of course I'm a human. People can kind of push my buttons a little bit. But the question is, okay, why? Why am I feeling like that? Maybe there's something I'm resisting to learn, right? So let me look at that in this way. So there are so many different ways of how we can navigate with our mind to really get the best outcome out of any conversation, any relationship, any situation, and getting stronger through that.
Getting the best outcome of any situation. What a perfect way it is. Just that's a quick reflection. Say you're encountering somebody that's kind of pushing that button. It's like, take that deep breath. God, maybe tattoo it on your arm. What is the best for this situation? I mean, I noticed you have tattoos in the same places I do. Well, I haven't looked at all your body, but they're there to remind me throughout the day that I can get through this. And I can progress. And it's not just through it, but I can evolve and grow through
Mhm.
every situation that I encounter, or I can fall flat on my ass because it's my choice. And sometimes you need that moment just to fall back because some of those kick you onto the ground are those times where you get to take a true relaxation, a true inventory of who you are, and you get to decide how you stand back up. And as much as those moments are painful, look and be so proud of yourself when you're back up. Because through my darkest moments have really been my biggest growth periods. And it's always tough right in the middle of it. But as you know, or you reflect on, what is this teaching me? What can I get out of this? How can I grow through this and take it? It's okay if it takes you a year to adjust to it. It's okay if you just get over it in a minute, but it's your choice and your growth that you get to do. And I like that. Says we're all in the same boat. We all fall down. We all get up. I mean, think if our toddlers never got back up after they dropped down on their butt the first time, they'd always be crawlers. They're not. They're up and are running, and we can do that too. We can get our own feet or grow our wings or whatever it is your goal is through believing that the situation is what's best for me at this time.
Yeah, for sure. I love how you made this metaphor with the infants when they, for real, if they fall, they will get up and they will walk for sure. And if we look back at our lives, and I invite everybody, who I'm talking to, if we have a conversation about similar topic, that will always ask, okay, I'm like, tell me about a happy time that made you grow. It's very rare. I mean, we can get some, exceptional scenes. Let's say if I was happy somewhere on vacation, yeah, I can enjoy, the rest and the beauty of where I am. But the best growth happens through the worst times, like you've said as well, right? So we have to understand that those moments are a part of our life for a reason as well. And I think that's where the spiritual component of our life enters. And again, spirituality doesn't have to be pertaining to any religion per se, but that energy, knowing yourself and knowing what makes you and gives you that inspiration, motivation, like we spoke in the beginning, that's that energy. Something in us just starts shifting and moving and turning, and leading us somewhere greater. But again, I feel like two important aspects to remember is number one, we have to be willing to change. And number two, we have to be ready to change because those two can be very different in nature. I may want to have some change. I don't want to feel this way. I'm tired of being tired and sick and all of that. But what am I willing to do for that? Or what was I not willing to do for that? Sometimes those counts as well. Sometimes we refuse to spend. I said, you know what? I don't have time for this 10 minutes a day of check-in. Okay, that's your choice, right? We all have a free choice. The question is, okay, am my state is good for me or not? Am I feeling happy where I am? If I'm feeling good, is this the optimal kind of level of performance for me? Is this feeling all right? And if it's not, maybe there are certain things that I have to start taking into consideration and switching and changing in order to accommodate that change, to foster it, to protect it, to nurture it, because it does take time. And most often than not, it's probably not going to be, oh, we're going to get rid of it or going to get through it in a minute. Usually it does take time, any healing, especially when we started turning inwards later in life. That can be a lifelong process already of harming ourselves in a way. So we have to kind of take that into account as well.
Yeah, someday we're going to fall down and we get to choose. Do I want to stay here for a while? Do I want to get up and start running? But it's that process from falling down and getting up that is so strengthening. Um, that's where you find power. And it's okay if you wait and get up later. It's okay if you have to put a Band-Aid on it and stop a bleed. It just works.
Yeah.
And it's also okay to not feel the growth, but you did grow. Sometimes it's like, well, that was a waste of time. But you don't know where you changed. You don't know. And I love when I'm down to say, I've been down before and I was able to get up. I can find the strength and I can do this. And that would be like going to the gym every day and standing there watching everybody work out and leaving and thinking you just got to go to work out. If we don't
Mhm.
experience anything that challenges us, that I'm going to lift a weight, I'm going to run for 10 more minutes, I'm going to walk for 2 if that's all you can do. Whatever that thing is that pushes you just a little bit is better than standing there and watching, and embrace it. And maybe your thing is just getting to the gym for a while. That's better than staying home. You got up, you got in your car, you got to the gym. It doesn't matter. And they're using the gym as a metaphor, not that you have to go get worked out. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sure that we all have a different way of exercising, but it's that acknowledging that this struggle is there and that I want to grow through it. And, or maybe even like when you get into a cold plunge, some people jump right in and other people put their toe in and go, oh shit, this is going to be cold. And they just fight the whole time going in. These are things that we can react the same way to situations. Sometimes you're pushed off the cliff and you have nothing to do. Sometimes you wade in and you adjust and you get used to it. They're all
Mhm.
things we choose. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever gets you through the situation. Not me. Lara Jane's going to do it her way. You're going to do it your way. And that's
Mhm.
okay. But you don't have to do it my way. But we're here to show other options so that you can possibly try new things if you choose to.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully said too. I think getting out of our comfort zone is kind of the prerequisite to change, right? We have to, because otherwise, if I'm doing the same thing and there's nothing that I experience as far as, I have to push through something, anything that challenges me, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. That's why it's not scary, it's comfortable, even though the worst part is actually that we get sometimes comfortable in uncomfortable and something that's actually hurting us. But because it's a habit, we kind of take it as a given and this is a part of our life now that said it's all set in stone, but it's not. And I'm a firm believer that the energy will start moving things around if I resist the change. If I know better, but I don't do better, because sometimes we start with like, okay, I don't know any better, I don't do better, I do the same. Then I've learned what's better and say, okay, now I know better, but I still don't do better. And then the next thing is again, if I don't do better, but I know better, that energy, the universal energy will start shifting me towards that. And it's going to be worse scenario than what we could have got if we decided to go through that, and say, you know what, now I know better, I got to do better. Let me set a plan for myself how to do it better. And the beautiful part of being a human, I feel like, is the fact that we have incredible ability for adaptability. We adapt to anything. People adapt to the most horrible experiences in life. And if we're talking about something that's actually going to be better for us, if taking on that new habit is maybe not, it doesn't guarantee, but it still gives me a kind of push forward to the goals that I want to reach, I will win. But I have to, again, I have to push myself and I get to make that choice myself rather than wait for life doing that to me because it's probably going to be worse.
And we can push towards a goal. And as we move forward towards it and keep continuing that way, we change. We change all along the way. So remember, it's okay to change the goal. That goal was what you set a year ago, and maybe it's not the new you anymore, but you have progressed, and meeting a goal is really just setting a path. I want to drive across the country and I'm going to go this way. And you head out on the freeway and you think, I want to see the country. I'm going to take some scenic routes. And so you take some scenic routes for a while and you enjoy the drive. And then you go, oh, but I got to make my destination. And I don't want to go there anymore. I want to go here. And you head out on the freeway again and you go fast, 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 fast. And then you think, oh, I'm missing out on life again. Let me take some scenic routes. Oh, and that's okay. You can completely do the scenic route. You can completely do the freeway. And you can change your destination at any moment. And that is the beauty of life. We're not, just because we wanted to do it a year ago doesn't mean I still want to do it. I've changed. I've grown. I'm a different person. And so are you. We're all different constantly every day. And it's okay to change the goal because it's your new you. And I love the freedom of being able, it makes me feel better about setting a goal in the first place. Because sometimes I'm not quite sure, but if I can set it and go, my progress towards this goal is going to help me towards any goal I want. And if I change it later, that's okay. I'm still further down the road than I was.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that level of awareness you described, when actually becoming aware of, okay, you know what, I want to look at that scenery, right? Or I want to go on that highway. We have to be aware of that because sometimes when we can be just going to that destination I wanted to go to, completely ignoring everything around us, just being in our head. So I feel like to understanding what it is that my mission is about, what is my purpose, my true purpose. I feel like there's a lot of trials and tribulations before we get there. And exploration, like you've mentioned as well, right? Setting that goal, at least start somewhere. You got to do something for yourself to kind of navigate and initiate that journey. So that I know, you know what, like something's got to change. Okay, what can I look at now? Whatever we feel drawn to, okay, go for that. Maybe you get a little more education on that. Maybe you get a little more understanding of whatever you want to get to. And then you're like, yeah, you know what? That's not really for me. Let me shift to something else. But it's going to give you still, it's going to start helping you change in a positive way rather than waiting for life to change me all around me. I can choose what do I want to practice and what traits do I want to get to. And I feel like taking one thing at a time works best. And there are so many little projects that we can start taking without taking on, finding my mission, finding my purpose. But let's say I want to be walking with my back straight. Like I want my posture to be better. Okay. How about you set an intention for yourself to scan for that every day, right? Number one is going to help me become more aware of where I am and what am I doing. And number two is going to get me to that little goal or changing. There's this lady, a beautiful teacher, Louise Hay. You're probably familiar with her. She does a lot of affirmations. Her life journey was absolutely incredible. She went from orphanage. She turn herself around with, at even the age of 40, 50, 60, she would always take on new projects. Why? Because we're changing regardless. But what's going to happen to me in 5 years? Some people say, I don't want to go to school. How old am I going to be in 5 years? Well, how old you're going to be in 5 years regardless, but you're going to either have education or not. If you feel like this is something for you, don't let excuses to take over. Don't let the other people tell you what you can and cannot do. You have to explore it yourself. But for that, again, you have to know what you want. You need to know where you want to be moving, where you're going next. And that can start with a very simple little thing. So whatever that is, take it on, keep on going, try to explore it. I feel like it's all worth it.
Well, and I also think our purpose has changed throughout our lives. There was a time my purpose was to get educated and to learn. Another time, my purpose was to raise children and to get them to be productive citizens, and then there's a purpose of inspiration. And there might be a nugget of purpose that follows all of those. Like I've always said, my purpose is to create natural happiness for others. And that natural just is something that just is there. And so that could have been in all of those other purposes, but our focus is at a different spot. And so when our focus changes, it's okay. Like, oh, I'm an empty nester. I'll learn to adjust. Oh, I'm whatever your next step is, you can still find purpose and not feel like it's draining your purpose. I had an income producing purpose for a while. There's all of these pieces. And you may not tune in to what that one consistent purpose was, but I
Hmm.
bet you as you reflect, you can start noticing it. When I was a child, when I was university, all these different, when I was married, when I was a mother, when I was a corporate executive, when I was
Hmm.
there's consistent change. There's consistent things we're running after. Oh, someday you're going to find that one thing that was there all along the way.
Yes, absolutely. Beautifully said, and I agree with all of it. I feel like it's important to recognize how do we feel when we're on purpose. What does it feel like? And that feeling is telling us that we're doing the right thing. Again, if I'm waking up in the morning, being on purpose, I'm excited about making that breakfast for kids, or I'm excited to go to that job and do that contract and talk to those people, right? And that's the feeling that tells us that, oh, yeah, I'm on purpose. It doesn't matter which purpose it is right now. It can be multiple that I'm kind of going through, but that feeling, it will tell you you are in the right place. And I feel like that also comes again with exploring, with changing, with growing, with taking on new things as well. Just trying different, avenues and finding your own way and finding that feeling when you actually feel like, okay, I'm aligned, I'm on my way. I know because I know it internally. I don't have to prove it to anybody. And that's another thing I feel like that we forget to understand that our feelings or that kind of meaning of being on our own purpose, it doesn't matter, again, it can be different purposes, right? But that feeling of being on purpose may not be understood by other people. And that's okay. It has to make sense to us. And it has to give me that feeling of, okay, I know what I am, how I feel, and I know I'm in the right place or on the right way, right? I'm in the right kind of trail. I feel like knowing yourself and understanding that your happiness is an inner job and it's your own kind of responsibility to get there and listening to that, finding the way. If you don't have the way, finding that because we can. We're built to do
Yeah.
that. We're built to be on purpose.
It's kind of like going to the eye doctor when you're discovering your purpose. It's which one looks better, A or B? A or B. It's like, okay, if I turn right here, which one feels better? If I turn left here, which one feels better? It's that. Have you ever said to the eye doctor, oh, wait, do that again? I can't quite tell. Sometimes it's so small that they both feel the same. And that means it's okay to go either direction. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But if you just take that, is one, do I see better with one or two? One or two? Okay, two. And go down that path. And you constantly are being asked, okay, now tell me one or two,
Mhm.
one or two. And you get to pick your path every step along the way. And we do it so instinctively but if you ever do hit one of those spots where you just feel, I can't make a decision, pretend like you're at the eye doctor, feel them both.
Yeah.
Which one feels just that teeny
Hmm.
tiny bit better and make the choice.
Yeah. I love that for sure. And I feel like that also requires us to be in tune with ourselves and not in our mind space. That's why even though things change all around us, even inside of us, there's still eternity in our own energy because that's the only place that never changes. It doesn't matter what we do, our soul, our energy, whatever we want to call it again. We like there's this metaphor we can't get wet from the word water, right? We get wet from
Mhm.
the substance of it. So it doesn't matter what in different traditions or different people can call it. That energy that runs through all of us will always be the same. That energy won't change because that energy is not created by human mind or consciousness or human world. It's not material. And I feel like turning to that will allow us to hear that little nugget of wisdom, right? Which way to turn much more louder so we can actually hear it. But again, if we don't use it, we lose it. So we have to practice that regularly in order to get good at whatever, right? If we're going to the gym, I cannot go to the gym once a year and say, okay, now I have a great body for the rest of this year, right? No, we have to dedicate time. We're going, every
It's a
single day or
daily
every other
effort.
day. Absolutely. And the same comes from learning yourself, and especially more so about learning yourself, because that energy is so subtle that if we don't tune into that, if we don't practice getting to know ourselves, we will never hear that. It's going to be so vague and so far away, so distant, that we're not going to be able to really embody that and work with that energy, because everything else is very temporary, and that's the only energy that moves everybody, right? And that's the energy that will help us and our restless mind to probably find the best solution of which option do we take, where do I go, and not being afraid, like you said, not being afraid to experiment, because ultimately I do believe that if we follow our intuition, our energy, we will be going to the right place, regardless of if we deviate, if we take the wrong turn. There's no such thing as a wrong turn, but in general, right? Exploration can take us places we probably don't want to be sometimes, and that's okay. But always remembering that still, no matter if I choose the wrong thing at a time, and I'm saying the wrong in quotation, right? We still are on the way to what is meant for us and what's meant for me, and that fulfillment and bliss and happiness and peace, all of that in one place. We just have to keep on going.
And the path that's going to give you the growth you need right now may not be the easiest path. It may be the easiest path. It's as we tune into what do I need right now
Mhm.
and make that choice based on your needs, not everyone around you. If you're dead set on, I'm always going to have my spouse with me no matter what, you can say, what is best for the growth with me, keeping this in my life? And you get to choose. But, there's so many partnerships that grow apart. And then we're shamed by the world because you're divorced. Oh, no, that's so bad. No, we grew apart. We didn't feed each other's souls anymore. We needed something new. And it's not a shame. It's sad that there's so many things that you get shamed for. You're not good enough if you go through a divorce. You're not good enough if you do this. You're not good enough. You are always good enough for what you came here to learn and do and grow. And what you're experiencing right now is helping you in that growth. And it can be awful. I think when I came down here to Earth, I asked for a level 1. Somebody else might ask for a level 10 challenge. We all have different levels of challenge. And we're always going to compare. It's just our nature. But we have to appreciate that we are on the path for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you've said about the partnerships, it's also very important to acknowledge again, number one, most likely we're not going to be with the same person forever, right? And that in the current world, right, where we live right now, it's very hard to have those relationships that will last a long time. Our world is growing really fast, and a lot of things that probably preoccupy us, take our attention, we change much faster than we did in the past as well. But the importance is we have to understand that if the person, like you've said, is not feeding my soul anymore, I have a choice to make, right? And I can walk away, I can stay, whatever the situation is. But the most important part is to always keep that relationship with yourself and knowing that you're not cheating on yourself with your partner. And if it's not working out, right, we have to acknowledge that and say, okay, you know what? I'm feeling way too exhausted from something. It's my responsibility to either take care of that, do I practice that self care and self love? And I feel like that's exactly the reason why a lot of times we end up in abusive situations, right? Where we get really stuck. And some people, again, getting comfortable in uncomfortable or even in toxic. I don't like the pop culture words, but again, that's kind of what it is if you leave yourself in those relationships. So remembering that you have to have that friendship with yourself, and we're the only person that will be with us until our very last breath. So we have to learn to prioritize ourselves. It's important, and seeing again, tuning inward and becoming more aware of what works for me and what doesn't. And absolutely, there can be no shame about anything. I mean, even if shame is it's a whole nother topic, right? But yes, I feel like not feeling you have to follow your own guidance. And some people, again, what especially like you said about comparing, what people portray on social media now. You can know for sure people don't have a good relationship and they're posting happy family pictures on there. And we're going to compare ourselves to that and say, oh my God, you see, they're happy and, I'm not, what's going on? Comparison is the thief of joy, how they say. So for sure, we got to learn to see, I feel like, again, what works for me at this moment. And if everything that I have around myself is here for my highest good. And then taking notes of that, taking in the inventory, as you said, and considering either moving forward, moving on, moving away, whatever that can look like for different people.
And if I feel like I'm in the middle of a super toxic relationship and there is no out, it's important to read through it and acknowledge that I'm here for a reason. And maybe it's just to learn to get back out. Maybe it's to inspire somebody else outside that hasn't got back out to watch you get out. And so it's no shame to be in a toxic relationship. There's no shame to be called a narcissist. There's no shame in it. There's purpose for you, and it's a growth for all of us. But me being around you, you being around me, there's growth in that, whether it's stressful or comfortable. And sometimes we have major accidents. Sometimes we really have some painful things that happen, but we grow through it, and our bodies and our minds are built to heal. And knowing that you can create the life you want. And if you want to stay in a relationship that someone else calls toxic, that's your choice. But can we help you make it through it? Can we help you breathe through some of your tough moments or acknowledge some growth or some direction changes or submitting to life? And I don't want you to give up. I just want you to know that where you're at right now is okay.
Yeah. But again, the question is how long someone will be staying in a toxic relationship. I mean, it's really toxic. Maybe there is a time for some, pushing or getting yourself
Yes.
out of that comfort zone that's very uncomfortable and probably painful. So I feel like we have to take responsibility also for, I mean, we can support people who are stuck per se, but again, sometimes that can be a very draining job if people don't want to make that move to actually free everybody else and themselves from this prison. So I feel like there has to be a balance of responsibility for the person involved in that toxic relationship, especially if they do understand that it's toxic, and then other people supporting that one person who can be in that relationship, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a personal choice, and some people are entitled to bad decisions and to good decisions, bad decisions, their own opinions, opinions of others. We're all entitled to that. But the question is, are we driving everybody else with us into that hole or not if we're stuck, So we have to learn to take personal responsibility and to strive to get out of relationship. If I'm saying I'm in a toxic relationship, yeah, I have to start making moves if I'm acknowledging that. So what's keeping me there? A habit, codependency. There's another issue that's involved clearly if I'm being stuck with that, you know? So I feel like it's a balance of many things, especially we're talking about toxic relationship, but I feel like we should be getting out of it if we are in one for sure. I've been in one, so I got stuck and I'm glad to transition myself, but I know people do that all the time.
My point is it's not shameful. It's
No,
okay to
absolutely.
talk about it. The second you're ashamed and you're not willing to communicate, you're more stuck. And
Oh yeah.
what are you learning? Are you learning how to get out? Yes. But it's your choice and you get to pick. And I just don't want people to feel shame.
No.
It's what happens. Many people, including me, have done it and moved through it. And if you want to hear all the war stories, that would be on another podcast. I want to hear about how we got out of it. So yes, we have been in toxic relationships. Yes, we have found a way out. And when you're out, you get to feel that peace that I did it. I have the strength. No shame on that person that caused the toxic. They're okay. They get to choose their life. They get to be that person. We just don't have to be with them.
Yes, absolutely agree for sure. No, there can be no shame. And I loved ones that I've heard kind of, I got a better understanding for me about shame. And there will be always moments that I can feel embarrassed. We can experience embarrassment. That's part of life, right? Something happens, we're human, we do some stuff. But shame is something that we choose to have. And so you're absolutely right. We are responsible for having shame about something or not. And if someone is bringing up my past for me to experience something like shame, these are not the right people to keep around either. Because if you're judging me for my past, there's nothing for us to talk. I moved on already. If you're still there in that time and that period, you can stay there. That's okay. But I know we're not walking one way. So I feel like it's a good indication too. I'm feeling shame. Absolutely not, for sure. It's one of they consider shame and fear and guilt, the three, one of the, or three of the most kind of negative and low vibrational emotions we can experience. So definitely that's gotta go. If we want to get out of here, putting ourselves through the guilt trip and the shame kind of trip, never going to be productive. We have to uplift ourselves. We have to say it's okay, like you're saying, right? It's okay. Maybe I'm here right now, but that's fine because I know I'm going to get out of it. I've got out from so many other situations and I was absolutely fine. So this is another step for me to learn self mastery and to learn what I'm capable of. Because sometimes we don't even realize what we're capable of until we meet those circumstances that we're talking about.
Yes, and I'm totally with you. I think this has been a great conversation, and it all does tie back to that knowing who we are so that we can have our own personal improvement. And you get to pick what's an improvement. It's not Laura Jane says, unless I do this, I'm not improved. You get to pick. But until we know ourselves, we don't know what that is. And it's that moment or those moments when we can tune in to what's causing this stress in my neck. What's causing this? What is it that I just experienced that I reacted this way? And a lot of times for me, it is stress or tightening within my body. And if I just go, "Oh, why is my leg cramping?" or "Why is this happening?" And it's not asking why as in it shouldn't happen, but what can I learn? What is this pointing me to? And I think all of this is just so important for knowing who you are. And like I say, I was authentic 30 years ago. I was the best me I could be. Am I the same? No. We change, we grow, and every year is a new authentic person. And the person that you encountered 10 years ago and you re-encounter them, there's going to be some people that just still fit like that comfy sweats and you just love just hanging out and being comfortable. And there's others you're going to meet and go, I don't remember this person because you might be changed. You grew through it. They may have stayed and it's okay.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Everything you said makes so much sense for sure for our self development. Being our own best friend, that's the best friendship and the best relationship we can ever create, I feel like.
It's the
Yeah,
only one that's never going to leave you.
absolutely. Until the very last breath, then we're departing and coming back. But yes, that's all after. Yeah.
Oh, Alisa, this has been amazing to talk to you. It's been a great exploration of self discovery and self improvement in our own way. Share with us a little bit about you, how to get a hold of you, and what is that one thing that we can do? That one thing I can practice today to get closer to who I am.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of pieces. So I'm a licensed clinician, licensed psychotherapist. You can find me by Alisa Gracheva. I have Instagram, I have LinkedIn, I have Psychology Today if anybody is looking for a therapy as well within the state of Florida. I specialize in trauma and working with people combining spirituality with mental health a lot, dealing with addiction, anxiety, depression, and PTSD, of course. I use a variety of techniques. But what I encourage everybody to start doing today is to start dedicating yourself from today onward at least 10 minutes. Start with 10 minutes a day of completely uninterrupted body scan, right? Turning into emotion, seeing places that may be tense or stagnant or dark within ourselves, right? We're always have those little tense spots. So I feel like just starting to take 10 minutes a day of uninterrupted time with yourself and learning and looking within and seeing, okay, what can I learn? Even if we don't know ourselves, saying, okay, what can I learn about myself today? What is one quality that I portrayed today? how did I handle that one stressor? How did I handle that one problem? Just learning about you and who you are, and maybe starting to journal, because I feel like a lot of things when we get to it mentally, with all of the things we have to do, we can often forget or not acknowledge. But if I start writing things down, that can give me some cues and actually make this 10 minutes with myself much more effective, because I'll be taking notes and the insights I got from that. That's how just learn about yourself 10 minutes a day, one day at a time.
It is one day at a time. And every moment you choose is a fresh start. So thank you so much for joining us, friend. I am not a medical or mental licensed professional. I am here for entertainment. We just want to help you clear your path, get to where you want to go with being your best self. So thank you so much for joining, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.